Hello, and welcome everyone to Movie Nation, where we talk about the movies like it's a national pastime. I am your host, Ken Reels, and welcome to the show. This week on the show, holy crap, I forgot to do this. That's better. Anyway, hey guys, and welcome to Movie Nation. Today on the show, we've got a brand spanking new set of films to talk about. We are talking about Arctic, the film from an actual YouTuber, as well as the new Apollo 11 documentary that is being released by CNN. And we are also talking about the news this week. Rami Malek might be in talks to be the new Bond villain, and Steven Spielberg is running his mouth again. All that and more on today's show. So welcome everyone, welcome very much to the show. And of course, also we have our trailer of the week, and spoilers, it's Dark Phoenix. But yes, so this week on the show, we've got a slew of things to talk about. So we might as well go ahead and, of course, go right into today's major releases. And that is the Apollo 11 documentary that is being released by CNN with some footage that has never been seen before. And for the record, these are the footage that hasn't been seen before, like, is in pristine condition. I have never seen, I don't know whether they remastered some of this stuff or not, but wow, like, it's in pristine condition. I have never seen something look as pristine that is that old. Like, that footage is as old as it is, and it looks beautiful in IMAX. And I was blown away at how, just from a filmmaking standpoint, how beautiful that footage was. Other than that, this documentary is very just blasé. It's fine. It's something that I think is an experience for sure, especially when you go see it, especially seeing it on IMAX, because of course that's the whole point of this, is that it's coming out in IMAX for 1 week only. So as of this recording, which is Sunday, you have about a couple of days as of now to go see it in IMAX, and I would definitely say it's worth seeing. I wouldn't necessarily say if you don't have the time or think it's not necessarily something up your alley. I think it's still a decent enough documentary if you see it when it comes on VOD to just check it out, because it's a cool little bit of explaining the whole Apollo 11 mission from start to finish. It starts day of the launch and then completely goes all the way through to landing and getting back from the moon. And it is just a great little documentary. It's a short documentary. It's an hour and a half. It's not incredibly long, and I think it's well paced for something like this. And it works. It works really, really well. I think it's a strong recommendation from me personally. I don't think it's anything to necessarily go see immediately, but I've never seen something so pristine in my life. I've never seen some of this footage as pristine as it was. Bar none. Like, absolutely ridiculously pristine. And that also brings into another film that is absolutely gorgeous, and that is Arctic starring Mads Michelson. And oh boy, this film is my favorite film of this year so far. Like, bar none. It is, as the quote on the actual poster over here says, it is one of the best survival kind of stories. And it's done with very, very minimal dialogue. And it's all done, it's just Mads emoting through his facial expressions. And it's just so good. It's a really good film. And even the score, which if you were watching the stream, there was a little bit of the score that I played in the beginning, and I'll probably close out with the score as well. But it is just absolutely amazing. This is easily one of my favorite films of the year. Just through sheer acting, Mads is just compelling. Like, you understand exactly everything that is coming into his mind simply by just how he's emoting. And it blew me away. It blew me away, and it has some of the most beautiful, beautiful photography when it comes to just the Arctic tundra. And they filmed this in Iceland. And it is just so beautiful. There are great pieces of just phenomenal photography. And then the score, which is just so haunting. The score for this film is just incredibly haunting on every conceivable level. You got to go see it if you can. If it is playing anywhere near you, I would wholeheartedly recommend going to go see this film. It's one of my favorite films of the year. Like, bar none. Bar none, this is probably my favorite film so far this year. And I can't thank anyone enough. And for those of you who don't know, this is actually directed by a YouTuber under the name MysteryGuitarMan. He actually went out and made a beautiful piece of cinema. Like, I'm blown away. And he was also the writer of this film. And it's just a great and well put together film from start to finish. And it's a film with very, very minimal dialogue. Like, there is not much dialogue in this film. I think you could fit the dialogue on maybe 3-4 pages tops. And it's all just action. It's all just thought and just feeling what this character is thinking and everything. And it's so good. It's just phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of cinema that you really should go see. It's a 10 out of 10. Like, this is a masterclass in acting, in how to shoot with minimal dialogue, how to shoot breathtaking landscape, how to score something that will make you haunting, will make something so isolated in terms of a picture and just make it haunting every time you see the vast landscapes. And the score just like elevates that to another level. It's my favorite film of this year so far. Like, easily. And no one is gonna know what I'm talking about when I end up putting this on my top 10 of the year. Like, no one. absolutely no one is going to know what the heck I'm talking about when I'm going to put this in my top 10. And people will go, wait, what the hell is that movie? This movie blew me away. It just simply blew me away. 10 out of 10. Go see it if you can. If not, wait till it's on VOD, because there's some really, really cool things to be brought to the film. And that also transitions us into the news for this week. So the news for this week, we've got our first little topic here, and that is the first poster from Hereditary director Ari Aster's new film, Midsommar, is bright and colorful and creepy as fuck. No joke. A24 has released first poster for the next film from Hereditary writer-director Ari Aster, and it's bright, colorful, and cheery. For those of you who don't know, Hereditary was a very, very good horror film, and this film follows a couple, Jack Rayner and Florence Pugh, who travel to Sweden to visit their friend's royal hometown, which is famous for their midsummer festival. But what begins as an idyllic vacation soon turns into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Will Poulter and The Good Places actor William Jackson Harper will also star. Oh boy, I'm intrigued. At the very least, this poster is very, very interesting and creepy. More specifically, because it's very bright and colorful, and then you see in the background this pagan cross and a legion of pagan cultists. Oh boy. This film's gonna be really, really creepy, and I'm looking forward to it solely because creepy films just are always a good thing, in my opinion. This is definitely going to be interesting to see what comes of it. And then that transitions into our second biggest topic. Our first biggest topic is not quite there yet, but our first biggest topic is Bond 25, Rami Malek in final negotiations to play the villain. Oof. Hot off his Oscar win for Bohemian Rhapsody. Spoilers. Rami Malek is in final negotiations to play the villain opposite Daniel Craig in writer-director Carrie Joy Fukuna's Bond 25. Well-placed sources tell Collider, and this is from Jeff Snyder, a reporter that I actually really respect and find his reporting to be blunt, but definitely always worth checking out. Variety previously reported that Malek has been eyed for the gig, but shooting schedule for the final season of Mr. Robot conflicted with the Bond 25 shoot, and that he was never formally offered the part by Eon Pictures. Sources tell Collider, however, that Malek's team at WME has successfully negotiated a shooting schedule to accommodate both productions. There's no deal quite yet, but one is expected to be made. This I'd just wanted to wait and see whether Malek would win the Oscar, which would, of course, raise his quote. Obviously. There aren't really any character details available, though the villain has been rumored to be a blind man. Moroccan actor Said Toukawi, Wonder Woman, has previously said that he was under consideration to play the Bond 25 villain when Danny Boyle was directing the film. Malek is of Egyptian descent, so I assume the script calls for a villain from Northern Africa. Lisa Do is confirmed to return as psychologist Madeline Swan, while Spectre actors Naomi Harris, Ben Whishaw, and Ralph Fiennes are also slated to reprise their roles. Scott Z. Burns was recently tapped to rewrite Fukunaga's script, and Collider sources have echoed reports out of the UK that the director eyeing Malek's fellow Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o for a key role, though it's unclear whether the actress has any interest in joining the Bond franchise. Eons, Barbara Broccoli, and Michael G. Wilson are producing Bond 25 and expected to be Craig's last as 007. Should be noted that Mr. Robot is produced by Universal Cable Productions, and Universal Pictures is handling the international distribution on Bond 25, which will hit U.S. theaters in April 8th of next year via MGM and Ana Pereira's new joint venture, United Artists Releasing. Our own esteemed editor-in-chief, Steve Frosty Weintraub, confirmed production has been pushed from March to April. We're not saying that shift was to accommodate Malek, but I think it certainly helped the situation since Mr. Robot is supposedly shooting until July. It's possible Malek's scenes in Bond 25 will be backloaded since the shoot is expected to last many months, and tentpole productions are rarely filmed in a linear fashion. In addition to his impressive turn as Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, Malek recently starred opposite Charlie Hunnam in the underrated remake of Papillon, which I also saw and thought was really good. You'll be able to hear him as the voice of Chi-Chi in Universal's Robot Downey Jr. movie, The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle. Okay, interesting. Malek is represented by WME and Bristine Entertainment Partners, and represented as the actor did not respond to multiple requests for comment over the past 48 hours. MGM declined to comment, as MGM likes to do. So, Rami Malek as a Bond villain, that just sounds awesome. I think his Oscar win, again, spoilers, because that's what we're covering for the rest of the show after the news, is really, really good. Like, I'm really digging the idea that he's going to play a Bond villain. And he can pull it off. Like, again, this is a man that was in the Twilight films. Like, he was a supporting role in the Twilight films. And immediately, when I saw him in the Twilight films, I'm like, this guy is interesting. He's going to go somewhere. And then he did Mr. Robot. And then really his performance as Freddie Mercury really just blew him up completely. And the Oscar win is just helping him get some of these big highlighted roles. And just the idea of him being a very interesting villain in a Bond film could, like, elevate him. I don't know whether he's going to beat Javier Bardem as villain and be the top of Daniel Craig's villains, which, I mean, Christoph Waltz had the potential to possibly be, but in the end, it didn't really work out as well as one would hope because of the whole hiding the fact that he's Blofeld. Oh, he's not Blofeld. He's fucking Blofeld. We all friggin' knew it. And I think that kind of hampered the reception of the last Bond, which was Spectre. Though Skyfall is still my top out of the Craig Bonds. Casino Royale being probably a close second, and Quantum of Solace being the bottom, like dead bottom. I think Spectre is way better than Quantum of Solace. I don't think it's as good as Skyfall, and Casino Royale, and I think Casino Royale and that are kind of playing back and forth in terms of the Craig Bonds. I don't think Craig is a terrible Bond. I think he's just gotten kind of a weird set of films to talk about. And I think Bond 25 could end up being his best, like, bar none. He could end up totally killing it in Bond 25, and having Rami to play opposite him could really, really help matters. And now we go into the big news of the week, which is Steven Spielberg to express Netflix concerns at upcoming Academy meeting. Steven Spielberg has been running his mouth again. And frankly, god damn it, Steven. You're a visionary filmmaker, but fuck you. Just seriously, fuck you. This is ridiculous. A movie's a movie. Shut the hell up. Netflix does not yet have a Best Picture Oscar, but Steven Spielberg is still apparently none too happy about the prospect of it winning one soon. The iconic filmmaker has long made his thoughts about Netflix known since last March, when he flat out said he doesn't think Netflix movies should be eligible for Oscars. I personally feel a movie's a movie, so shut the fuck up and deal with it, old man. I'm sorry, Steven. You were a visionary. And you excelled at a time, but there are plenty of other filmmakers out there that aren't going to be kind of this thing. And Spielberg, sadly, has become part of the studio system, as it were, today. And it just makes me feel sad that a visionary filmmaker like Spielberg is making these comments. Now, in the wake of the 3 Oscar wins for Netflix's Roma, including Best Director, Spielberg is prepared to propose a rule change that would rule Netflix films ineligible at the upcoming Academy Board of Governors meeting. He represents the directors branch of the board. The news comes courtesy of IndieWire, though it's unclear specifically what rules Spielberg would propose to be changed and whether Netflix increasing the length of its theatrical window ahead of its streaming release would ease his concerns. A spokesperson for Amblin had to say this: Steven feels strongly about the difference between the streaming and theatrical situation. He'll be happy if the others will join his campaign when that comes up at the Academy Board of Governors meeting. He will see what happens. It put Spielberg in direct conflict with his friend and filmmaker Martin Scorsese, whose new film, The Irishman, will debut on Netflix later this year. The streaming service has already committed to a theatrical release for the film, but Scorsese reportedly wants to give the film a wide release. That poses a challenge. Roma was released in theaters 3 weeks before it hit the streaming service at first, but only in limited release, and it followed a smaller platform rollout in the ensuing months. In order to convince major theatrical chains like AMC and Regal to carry The Irishman, either Netflix would have to bend to their rules and release a film in theaters a full 90 days before it hits Netflix, or theater chains would have to break their long-held standards and hold fast to the 90-day window. The window of exclusivity is there to ensure the exhibiting films is worth the theater's while. If a movie on Netflix at the same time as it is in theaters, chances are most people aren't going to pay extra to go see it in a movie theater. So while the whole issue remains in flux, Spielberg's taking steps to prevent Netflix from gaining even more ground at next year's Oscars, but not all filmmakers are in agreement. Ava DuVernay is one who took to Twitter to voice her dissent. Dear the Academy, this is a Board of Governors meeting, and regular branch members can't be there. But I hope if this is true, then you'll have filmmakers in the room or read statements from directors like me who feel differently. Thanks, Ava DuVernay. And she links a previous article from the playlist.net talking about Steven's original comments on how he feels that Netflix is TV and not and does not deserve any Oscar consideration. DuVernay has been a long supporter of the Netflix model, pointing out that movie theaters aren't always accessible to those with lower income, and especially persons of color. Indeed, people couldn't even see DuVernay's civil rights drama Selma in Selma, Alabama, or Straight Outta Compton in Compton, California, due to lack of access. And the reason Alfonso Cuarón took Roma to Netflix in the first place was because other distributors wouldn't commit to as wide a potential audience as the streaming service. I don't necessarily think changing the rules to make Netflix movies ineligible for Oscars is the right call, as the writer of this article is saying, but I do think there's value in Spielberg pushing back. A strong advocacy for theatrical distribution could be the push necessary for Netflix to commit to a more traditional theatrical window, thus ensuring folks who care to do so could see certain Netflix movies on the big screen without pushback, or at least advocacy from filmmakers. One imagines Netflix would just forge ahead with its date-to-date model and skip theaters altogether. It's interesting to see what happens next. Some pointed to Green Book's Best Picture win over Roma's at the Academy, pushing back against Netflix, but I'm not entirely sure that was a major driving factor. Just as you can see a number of esteemed Oscar-winning performers in Marvel movies, Netflix's upcoming slate of films and TV shows is full of critically acclaimed actors and filmmakers. Just this year, they have a new film from Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh, and Dee Reese. As traditional studios move closer and closer to only making blockbuster and or known IP content, filmmakers are forced to flock to Netflix to tell the kinds of stories that used to be commonplace on the big screen. But that doesn't mean Netflix has to completely ignore the theatrical model, and I do think there's a happy medium to be reached here. Roma tested the waters with a 3-week window, and there was no revolt from subscribers. So I think Netflix could stand to follow in Amazon Studios' footsteps and commit to a 90-day window for select films that are best seen on the big screen, though that comes with the caveat that Amazon is now moving away from the 90-day window model and is going to start making films that will be released directly to streaming, just like Netflix. The truth of the matter is the industry is evolving and growing pains are necessary to ensure the medium of film continues to thrive. I'm curious to see what becomes of Spielberg's comments at the upcoming Academy meeting and how Netflix is going to adjust the model for major releases this year like The Irishman or Michael Bay's blockbuster Six Underground, which I do not have any knowledge of. That's interesting to hear. Stay tuned, folks. Roma may be a bona fide Oscar winner, but the battle over Netflix is far from over. Okay, so I'm sorry, Spielberg. A movie's a movie's a movie. Shut the fuck up. That's about all I can say to express my thoughts on that. Spielberg is an older gentleman now, and he's kind of become a very interesting human as he's aged. A lot of people love Ready Player One. I thought the film was a bit jaded in its kind of ideals that I don't think it really fully Stephen fully comprehended what the heck he used to do. Like, he's not. It feels like an old school Steven Spielberg film, but it feels with it has like this jadedness to it that it's like he's trying to recapture that magic, but it's not all there. It was this weird situation. And nowadays he makes films like The Post, which are very politically fueled. Like, he's a very, very interesting filmmaker, as it were, and I'm interested to see what he does next. But at the same time, like, I don't really think that him going against Netflix and pushing back from streaming and saying their TV movies is fair. Like some of the films, sure, they are definitely TV based. I think some of the bigger budget stuff, like even to some extent Bright, which I think is a fine action film. It's not amazing, but it's definitely a fine action film and something I would probably go see in the theater, but I'm also the exception to the rule a lot of the time. But seeing it on Netflix, sure, I'll watch that. And it's just one of those things where it's like, there are some great films that Netflix has funded. And I think we're getting to the point where that middle ground level of filmmaking is going to Netflix because Netflix has the money. Netflix has the money and is willing to give them the money to make these films. And the problem is the studio system refuses to actually invest in these because they are so much invested in the big budget stuff that they can't really fund the smaller stuff. And granted, Universal actually was committing to more smaller stuff because they were making a lot of money off the smaller stuff. And I think Universal is really the only major studio right now that is investing in some of the smaller stuff to help fund the bigger stuff. And that's generally how Hollywood has worked. And the thing is, like, it's just a mess. It's a mess of a studio system, and it's gonna fail at some point. At some point, either the theaters are going to tank or something big is going to happen in the next decade that is going to completely change the movie landscape. I think streaming is definitely something that is going to be way more prominent as the next decade comes around, but I think there's also a pushback from a lot of collectors like myself. I have a huge physical collection of film, but I think if you supplement the physical market with the streaming, that's perfectly fine. I'm fine with that. And I think a lot of major theater chains with the 90-day window thing is a bit weird. And I think that is possibly going to change in the future. I think it might cut down to maybe a 60-day window, like a 2-month window. And I think that's a fair assessment given today's society and given how quickly some of these films leave the theaters. Like, not even a month. It's not even a month and certain films are gone from theaters. So what the fuck is the point of the 90-day window? Like, the whole 90-day window thing is absolutely pointless. There's no reason to go from a 90-day window. You're not making any money. You're not making any money on certain films if you have a 90-day window. The big stuff, sure, but the smaller the film, the worse that 90-day window is for a film, because you're making pennies on the dollar when it comes to the smaller stuff. Like Arctic, for example, I had to go pretty far off to go see that film this week, and I personally will go out of my way to go see films like that, but not a normal human. A normal human being is not going to go see that kind of stuff. And it just is really, really tough. Like, it's really tough to think that is what's happening in today's society. Like, it blows my mind that things are going to be changing in the movie industry in the future, and it's gonna be it's gonna be an interesting thing to do. So with that little conversation, we're going to go ahead and go into our trailer of the week. Spoilers, it's Dark Phoenix. The new Dark Phoenix trailer, the second trailer, is out, and it is Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, and frankly, oh boy, what can I say about this trailer? I want this movie to be good. I so want this movie to be good, but oh my gosh, this film is not gonna be good. I mean, the beginning of this, it's like, we're obviously killing off Mystique, because of course we are. Like, I predicted this a long time ago, that Mystique was going to end up getting killed off instead of Xavier. Even in the first trailer, I'm like, oh, Mystique's going to die instead of Xavier. That's pretty obvious. And it's so interesting that I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think this movie's going to be good. And like this whole thing in the trailer with Beast and at the funeral, like there was the Beast Mystique relationship. That was a thing. But like overall, like I think the filmmaking of this is really well done. Like it looks good per se, but oh my gosh, this could end up being a total mess. And this is coming from a fan. Like, Phoenix as a character is my favorite X-Men character. Like, one of my favorite comic characters, period. And I don't know what to think of what's going to happen. Like, I have a feeling they're going to still kill Scott. They're still going to kill Scott. And I think instead of Xavier dying, it's going to be Mystique. Like, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. And it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. I'm so sad. I'm so sad that this movie isn't going to be good in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I have the teaser poster on my wall. I'm excited for this film. I really am. And it's not gonna be good. And I'm so sad. I am so sad that this film isn't going to succeed. And it just makes me incredibly sad. So, with that, let's talk about more sad shit. We have the winners of this year's Academy Awards. Some of them I totally agree with. Some of them I completely disagree with. But we're going to go ahead and go right into that. And we've got the writing for original screenplay goes to Green Book. I've said my piece about Green Book. I do not like Green Book. I think it's just super Hollywood blasé. There is no reason why this film wins original screenplay. It should be absolutely not the winner of screenplay, so go fuck yourself, Academy. However, the winner for adapted screenplay goes to Spike Lee, Charlie Wichel, and David, what's his name, from BlacKkKlansman. Yeah, no, Spike finally gets his Oscar gold. I'm happy. I love that he did get bleeped out, obviously, during the ceremony, and I think the big thing was that he was just elated. He was elated that this was his big moment, and especially getting to be presented the award by Sam Jackson. That's just extra icing on the cake. And I loved Sam Jackson's reaction as well when he was able to read Spike's name. And then we go to visual effects. Now, as much as I thought Infinity War was gonna totally win it, I was actually changed by a critic, William Bibbiani, and he made a comment that usually the visual effects award goes to a film that didn't get into Best Picture but could have won Best Picture, and First Man was his bet on that, and I ended up putting that down on my final ballot, and First Man won. First Man ended up winning. And then there was both sound categories. A lot of people were very critical of this, even though the fact that it's odd. It's an odd choice. I'm not mad about it. I just think it's an odd choice. And that was both sound mixing and sound editing went to Bohemian Rhapsody. And I think this is fair. And this is where it started to go, okay. So they are actually going to just flat out ignore that Bryan Singer was quote unquote the director. He really wasn't. He got the credit for it, but he really wasn't. And not a single one of the people that won for Bohemian Rhapsody thanked him, for good reason. If you don't know, just look it up. Like, seriously, it's a travesty. The man is a horrible human being and does not deserve any recognition whatsoever. And so the best live action short film, which I actually ended up hunting most of these down, and I believe Brian, who we had on the nominees episode, commented that Skin would possibly win, and it did. So Skin won for best short film for live action, and the best short film for animated went to Bao, which is the obvious choice. Like, there's no doubt. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Bao was going to not take home it because it's the safe bet. And then we get the first ever winner in terms of Marvel Studios taking home the gold, and that is Black Panther for production design. Wow. Like, I kind of put my bet on that, especially costume design. Like, costume wise, it Black Panther was probably going to win, but production design, sure, that's a fair bet on in terms of just some of the production design on that film is phenomenal. Some of the sets are just beautiful pieces to look at in this very urban, African urban, retro-y kind of look to it, and it looked really, really good. Black Panther totally deserved production design. Original song, Shallow. Like, not even a question whether Shallow was going to not win for best original song, especially after that performance at the Oscars. Like, holy shit, you didn't even need to introduce it. You didn't need to even introduce Shallow. You just started off with Shallow. You just started the music and just went through with it. That's how much people were just like, yeah, no, this is gonna win. like, no doubt. And Lady Gaga is one step closer to getting her EGOT. And for those of you who don't know, EGOT stands for Emmy, Oscar, Grammy, and Tony. She just needs to win the Tony, and she will end up taking home, and she will end up having her EGOT, which she definitely deserves. She's definitely one of those people that totally deserves an EGOT. And we go for original score, and that went to Ludwig Göransson for Black Panther, which was a big surprise. Like, either for me, honestly, it was either going to be Black Panther or Black Klansman. Given that I had rewatched Black Klansman, I said on the nominations I don't really remember the score for Black Klansman, but having seen it again, I'm like, oh yeah, no, the score is really good in that film. And like I now generally remember the score for Black Klansman. And Black Panther is just a very interesting score. If you don't know, I believe it's Variety that put out this video, but there's a video on YouTube about like interviewing Ludwig about how he built the score for this film. And it's a very, very cool film it's a very, very cool video to watch and talk about. Makeup and hairstyling went to Vice. No surprise there. That was an obvious choice again. Like the fact that you made a very, to quote some guys on a podcast that I listened to called Critically Acclaimed, this, like, when you make a very attractive Irish, is he Scottish? Oh, Welsh. Welshman. When you take a very attractive Welshman and turn him into Dick Cheney, you deserve an Oscar for that. Yeah, no. Without a doubt. Best foreign language film went to Roma, and that is literally where Roma ended up losing. Best picture, which, well, yeah. I think Roma is a fine film. I think it's near the bottom of my list of the nominated for Best Picture, but it definitely deserved foreign language at the very least. And apparently this was the first win for Mexico in terms of Best Foreign Language. I think it was like the 11th or 13th nomination the country got, but it's the first win for Mexico, which is cool. And from someone who is like Alfonso Cuarón, like, that is a great choice. And then we go into film editing, and that went to Bohemian Rhapsody, which was an odd choice, to be perfectly frank. I thought that was an odd choice for editing. Granted, the Live Aid sequence is a beautiful piece of film making, but editing, okay. I'm not mad at that, but I'm a little weirded out by it, if anything. And then documentary short, we go to Period End of Sentence, which was really interesting. Like, the fact that Period End of Sentence ended up winning. Good for them. And that was a really good speech. You can't really beat that. And then we have the winner for documentary feature was Free Solo, and that kind of made sense in the grand scheme of things, given the fact that Free Solo had got a release in IMAX screens like 2 weeks before the Oscars, so you could see it on the big screen. And sure, I mean, fine. I didn't really see the documentary in its entirety, so I can't really say. I'm sad that Won't You Be My Neighbor didn't get nominated, and then that not getting nominated kind of just put a damper in the documentary feature category altogether. And then for directing, Alfonso Cuarón won for Roma. I guess, all right. Like, I hoped it was going to be Spike, but Alfonso winning doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I think he's fine. He's just fine. And then we go into costume design, and Black Panther ends up taking costume design. That makes 2 Oscars for Black Panther. 2. Take that, DC. I'm just joking. I don't give a shit. There's not really a competition between DC and DC, Warner Brothers, and Marvel. There really isn't. A movie's a movie. Just calm down, you stupid fanboys. But Black Panther ends up taking home another Oscar, and this time for costume design, for good reason, because those costumes were phenomenal. Like, bar none. I think The Favorite would be a close second. Just overall, like, people like period pieces, and considering most of the budget went to the costume design of that film, yeah, sure, that's fine. Cinematography went to Alfonso Cuarón again for Roma, and he is, I believe, he's one of the first people to not be nominated and win in multiple categories. In terms of a director. So good for him. Like, the cinematography of Roma, I will probably say is fair. I think I do agree that with Brian, when after seeing The Favorite, that The Favorite was a very good achievement in cinematography. I don't think it was a good achievement in editing, but that's just me. And then we get animated feature Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If that didn't win, I would have rioted, because that would have been horrendous. Like, of course Spider-Verse is going to win. Thankfully, it won. So, yeah. So Spider-Verse ends up taking the top spot. And now we get into the big acting categories. Regina King for supporting actress. No shit, Sherlock. She was the only thing about that movie that made it bearable, in my opinion. Mahershala Ali wins for Green Book. Sure, fine. Rami Malek wins for Bohemian Rhapsody, obviously. And then there's the Best Actress category. And Olivia Colman wins for The Favorite, which was a surprise. And you know what? Fine. That's fine. She was... I will say the fact that I didn't necessarily enjoy The Favorite, I had said that the acting is the best part of The Favorite. And Olivia Colman as the Queen was spot on, hilarious at times, and beautiful. Like, I think specifically, I pointed this out in a previous episode when I reviewed it, that there's a moment where she has a stroke, and they don't tell you that she has a stroke, but she just shows it in her face, and it's so, like, it's perfect. It's pitch perfect. Like, you immediately realize, oh, this person had a stroke. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why she ended up winning. I'm not mad that she won. I just wish Glenn would have won so she could finally take home Oscar Gold. Please. I want the Academy to give Glenn her gold, please. She deserves it. She's an amazing actress, an amazing character actress of our time, and I want her to win. I want her to win one so bad. Like, she's... Okay. I've said this before on last week's episode, but going to see Albert Nobbs changed how I see filmmaking and changed how I see films. And her performance in that film is one of the main reasons why I fell in love with film, like, as a medium, and just would love to go see just random stuff. Seeing Albert Nobbs is the film that really introduced me to what films could bring, and like, it just blew me away. And Albert Nobbs is in my top 10 of all time just for that reason. And I really wish Glenn would have won. I really wish she would have won. But she didn't, and I'm still happy that Olivia Colman won because she was really good in it. And then Best Picture goes to Green Book. Seriously. I'm not super mad that Green Book won. I'm just sad that Green Book won. Because Green Book, to me, is not Best Picture. I would have taken anything else. I really would have. I really would have taken anything else. Roma winning, fine. I would also disagree with Roma, but I would have been much finer with that winning than Green Book. I've stated before, I did not enjoy Green Book. I thought it was blah. It's just classic Hollywood trash. Anything else besides Green Book or Roma, I would have been happy with. I would have been happy with anything else. Star is Born, sure. Star is Born was my number 3 of the year. It's sad. It's a sad statement. I don't think I would say Green Book is probably up there with Crash and The King's Speech as some of the worst Best Picture wins. The only reason why people will remember Green Book is because it won the Oscar. It has no right to be a winner of an Oscar like that. I'm fine with the original screenplay. Don't get me wrong. I disagree with it, but I'm fine with it winning for that. Best Picture? I don't think that's the best film of the year. Not even close. I don't think it's the best film of the year, and I don't think it's the best film out of the eight films that were nominated, bar none. And I think the preferential ballot system of Best Picture, it kind of made Green Book win because people probably put it at like number 2 or number 3, and that's what ended up putting it over the edge. That's the only thing I can think of, and it's sad. It really is sad. Just that was a mess. What wasn't a mess was the fact that they had no host this year at the Oscars, and honestly, them not having a host was a good thing. The ceremony went a lot smoother. The only thing that I think it didn't do well was how it ended. It was just kind of like, that's the end, bye. It really wasn't a well thought out ending. But overall, I think it was fine. Queen opening the Oscar ceremony, I think, was fine, but didn't really feel right to be part of the Oscars. It felt jaded in a sense. Yeah, it's Queen. Everyone loves Queen, but it didn't feel right given the tone of this, given what the Oscars represent and the overall tone that you would expect from the Oscars. It just didn't work that well, like, overall. Like, it was an okay ceremony. I've seen way worse in terms of Oscars, and I thought it was possibly going to be a train wreck, given that there was no host this year. Like, not having a host this year wasn't an issue. What was given awards, for the most part, I didn't have much issue with. When it comes to Best Picture, of course I had an issue with it. When it comes to some smaller awards, a little iffy. I do think that keeping in memoriam, fine. Perfectly fine to do that montage. That's an obvious montage to do. But overall, like, I think the ceremony is, I'd probably give it like a B. B minus. It's not awful. But I think some of the choices in terms of winners of the Academy overall, I think kind of hampered my viewing experience, as it were. And with that, we're going to end off this week for Movie Nation. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at KenReels. Follow Movie Nation at Movie Nation Pod. Whenever the new episodes go out, whenever the episodes go out on the feed, that's where you can find it on Twitter, or you can just go directly to movie-nation.com. So, with that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Next week is Captain Marvel week. I don't know what else I'm going to actually see to coincide with Captain Marvel. I'll play it by ear. Keep an eye out on my Twitter. I might kind of hint at that. I'm also on Instagram at KenReels. So, with that, we're going to get out of here. So, thank you guys, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to Movie Nation.
Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
You can like us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Movie Nation Podcast. Or follow us on Twitter at Movie Nation Pod.
Nobody likes you. Everybody hates you.
If that's so, and you would like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, you can do so at the respective socials or send us an email, movienation@hotmail.com. That's movienation@hotmail.com. Or you can do so on our episode post over at movie-nation.com. That's movie-nation.com.
And tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And you have the freedom to listen to us next time.
Is looking at you, kid.